We're not there yet. I think that is an indication of the most recent breach related to SolarWinds incident that occurred in some of the most prominent organizations in the world that followed all the policies and procedures that you possibly can imagine and threw all the money in the world behind it. But at the end of the day, it still happened. So we're not going far enough down the supply chain in order to enforce the same level of rigor that we would within our enterprise. And it's going to be difficult to really do that well. What you are starting to see, and there's some promising signs around some new standards like the Cybersecurity Maturity Model certification, where they are starting to hold organizations of different sizes to a standard, right, from a cybersecurity maturity model perspective. And I think the more that takes shape and the more that it's pushed further downstream within the supply chain ecosystem, there's going to be a higher degree of confidence that we're going to place right on more companies' cybersecurity models. Today, it's just not. It hasn't been standardized enough for it to be easily adopted further enough down into the supply chain to where it can be addressed at a systemic level.
Are we there yet? Is there proper focus? Is there enough focus? And I have to answer that as every security person is going to answer and say, we'll never be there. Security is a journey. And if you think about this, you can never rest on your laurels. You can never rest and just say, we've done enough. And why? Because the attackers are always going to say, how do I get access there? And you put those controls in place, whether they be technical, whether they be procedural. You've trained your people now, and they're understanding how to detect, they're understanding how not to click or not to do this. The attackers are just going to shift what they used to do or what they're doing now. So there's never going to be we're there, or we've done enough, or I think we can now shift our focus to other areas. Using the whole analogy of you've got to plug 100 holes, whereas the attacker's only going to find the one. So am I plugging those 100 holes correctly? And then by the time circle back and start again and making sure I'm still covered.
And I think it's one of those where this is going to continue to evolve. The technology is going to continue to advance. The threats are going to continue to evolve and advance. And so unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, we'll never be there. And so it's just going to be this continuous journey of improving the program and responding to the changing environment.
It's a question that I would like to ask myself and be able to say, yep, we're all good. I've worked myself out of a job and can go on to take the next biggest thing. The bad guys are better. The good guys are better. There's more things to exploit. Given the geopolitical machinations that are happening now, nobody likes each other. There's always the constant, China doesn't like us, North Korea doesn't like us. Cyber warfare is going to be unfortunately probably increasing. My guess is that the next war is actually a cyber war, not necessarily a hypersonic missile war.
Oh, I don't believe we're there yet. I don't believe we're ever going to be there. The technology is changing too rapidly. As rapidly as Agile changes software code, security has to be right there with it at all times. We have been trying for 30 years to get regular users to remember their passwords, and we haven't been able to do it. To the point that now we have to use biometrics, or we have to use passphrases, or we have to use other forms. That security is still a secondary thought for users, for business. It's seen as a hindrance to making money. It's seen as a necessary evil. Just, we have to be compliant. We have to check a box. And until we figure out how to make security integral to what we do, integral to all technology, and not something that people hate. Oh, I have to remember another password. I have to create another account. I have to change my password. I just changed my password. and of course passwords are not the only issue, but this one that we bring up, that we still are not there. We're just not there. It's not ubiquitous yet. And we need a kind of leap like the iPhone gave computers. The iPhone put computing into the hands of everybody, and it made it a form of computing that everybody understood from the start. They didn't need to be trained. They didn't need to attend classes to learn how to use their phones. They just started using it. And if security were a part of that, were integral to that experience, to the point that they didn't have to think about it all the time, that they just took it for granted, that's when we've made it.
No, we're nowhere close to there yet. I think some companies are certainly getting a much more increased focus, but if I look even across banking, and I use banking as the example because if you look across other industries in the US and Western Europe, banking tends to be the most advanced from a cyber perspective. You've got healthcare, pharma, energy, that's sort of the next group, and then the rest. So if you start out and think about banking, even in banking today, the vast majority of security programs are keep me out of jail, keep me out of the press security programs. That's not where you need to be. For you to really have a truly world-class security program, you need to have a security program that's facilitating changing the way the business works. Actually having a security program that aligns with and helps drive the business forward. Yes, you want to keep people out of jail and all that other stuff, but if that's where you stop, and that's where 90+% stop, no, you're not there yet. You can also look at reporting lines. How many CISOs, if you take a look at the Fortune 500, spend regular one-on-one time with their CEO? I would venture to say not many. So until that becomes the regular view of the world, no, we're not there yet.